Well, the defense of this guy is almost ready upon us as we get into the 2019 CFL regular season here. We wrapped up the preseason here, and ultimately decisions were made, and I'll just go over the 2019 Calgary Stampeders roster as where we are at heading into the home opener here, week 1 here. So first I'll go over the rules on what needs to be on the CFL roster here, and as well we will go over quickly some other cuts that happened league-wide. That there wasn't anything too earth-shattering on the Calgary Stampeders front and league-wide, but there was a couple players that had some experience that got released by their respective teams. Definitely shows that there's more pool of talent that we could field a 10th team, or definitely there's more football growing beyond North America here, because how the CFL had a partnership with the Mexican Football League and even looked over to Europe there. So it was 10 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday, June 8th. This is right from the Canadian Football League website, CFL.ca. So what you need to have on your roster here is on your active roster, the roster you'll field on game day, is you need 3 of the 46 players need to be quarterbacks. Don't matter where these quarterbacks are from. So you got 3 quarterbacks on your 46 player active roster here. And of the 43 players, after you name the quarterbacks, you need to carry a minimum of 21 national players, or this used to be the non-import Canadians, and it could be either native Canadian, or they even make it loosely, like if you are a Canadian citizen or have like a parent who is a Canadian citizen, that you're considered as a national player. And now they also, with the new agreement with the Mexico football, I think it's the LGA, or forget what it is, I can't even pronounce it, but there's the Mexican Football League, you got 1 global player. So that, because there was a partnership that the CFL had with the League of Mexican Football, that we were able to draft players who can get our rights, and they would be considered a global player. And then after that, you can have 10 players to get added onto the practice roster. That was any time as of today, recording this Sunday, June the 9th here. And of the 10 players you can have on your practice roster, you have to have at least 2 national players. And then in addition to these 10 players, you can have 2 global players on your practice roster, so you can carry up to 12 players on your practice roster. So to recap, you get a 46 player active roster, 3 quarterbacks, and then of the 43 players, 21 minimum have to be national, 1 global, and then the rest will be considered international. And then you got 10 practice players, and you have to have 2 national players, and you can carry up to 2 global players, so you can have 12 on your practice roster here. So I say there's 3 category players. You got national, Canadian, international, pretty much American, and then global, Mexico. Anyway, so continuing on the league website here before we get onto the Calgary Stampeders roster here. This is what the league highlights on notable names that got released here. For the Toronto Argonauts, they released Josiah St. John, who a couple years ago was the first overall pick by the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And I also heard that Brandon Bridge, the quarterback who was on the Toronto Argonauts roster, also got released there. Another guy that got released that might have some note and have some experience here, David Watford, quarterback, who was on the Saskatchewan Roughriders, actually was the starting quarterback in the West semifinal there. He's been released. And then on the BC Lions here, Austin Opigda. Austin Apodaka. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. He was apparently going to be the backup, or trying to be backup to Mike Rowley in the BC Lions. He's been released. And then a lot of Red Blacks, another quarterback who got released, according to the CFL website, is Danny Collins. He would have been at least their third stringer at this stage with Dominic Davis and Jonathan Jennings. And then on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers side, there was Brian Bennett, their quarterback, but he would have been, third stringer behind Nichols and Strebler there. And then pretty much the last guy that you could say is a big surprise at the CFL, or a couple more players that the CFL highlighted here on the Hamilton Tiger Cats. They parted ways with Canadian defense tackle Justin Vaughn from the Hamilton Tiger Cats. So he could be a ratio buster if anyone wanted to pick him up. And then on the Montreal Alouettes, well, Jeff Matthews, quarterback who has some experience, was released there. So that's just some of the big names that the CFL pictured as in notable names that got cut in the roster deadline here. So that's on the league here. Now let's shift focus to the Calgary Stampeders roster here, and let's introduce your 2019 Calgary Stampeders. These group of guys were counting on to defend the Grey Cup here, and with the big game here in Calgary here. So how they listed on the Stampeders website here is I have it brought up that it's in order by last name going down here, so that's how I'll go through the roster here. So the active roster here, the guy on the top here is Markeith Ambles, a wide receiver, who make note he's going to be wearing number 17. He wore number 83 there going down the stretch there last year. So you got Markeith Ambles here, and then he's the wide receiver. And then you got Deshaun Amos, number 8, defensive back here. And then number 9, Nick Arbuckle, the quarterback. He actually looked pretty good in preseason, and I figured that hopefully he gets more familiar with the Canadian game, that if the unforeseen happens, we're not as screwed as some teams could potentially be if they lost their starting quarterback here. So that's the A's here. Here we are. Next is Reggie Bagleton, number 84 wide receiver here. I'm going to probably say he's definitely looking to step up here as one of the go-to receivers here. And then next guy is Shane Bergman, number 60 offensive line. He's definitely been here for several years, and also a ratio buster for the offensive line here. Next guy here, Jerod Breskison, number 82 wide receiver. I'm expecting another guy who should be able to step up here, or at least make more highlight reel catches here, as that's what Jerod Breskison has been able to do in the few years he's been in the CFL. So next guy here, a long snapper, Pierre-Luc Caron, number 54. You only see him on long snapping duties for punts and that, but he's been pretty good at that role since he's been here. And then next guy is Montel Corzart, number 12. He's the third string quarterback here. Another guy that looked pretty good during preseason here, that he's gotten a lot more comfortable with the Canadian game since he's been on the roster last year. And then the next guy here, defensive back, Daniel Robertson. Daniel, the line defensive back, he's actually going to wear number 0 here. So a new guy wearing number 0 here after Ciante Evans played in the AAF, and then he's on with the Montreal Alouettes here. The next guy here on offensive line, one of the top guys that I say in the league, or he's definitely worked out at least for Calgary, not so for one season in Saskatchewan, number 63, Derek Dennis on the offensive line, and he'll definitely be leaned on a lot more on the offensive line this year, especially when I get to the injured part of the roster here. Next guy, we'll see how well this guy will work out, is Vincent Desjardins, number 92 defensive line, in which we're definitely going to have some new faces on the defense this year with a lot of guys departing through free agency and trying out the NFL here. Another guy who I think has looked good at the second half of the season here and looking like to make a home here is Corey Greenwood, number 36, the linebacker. He definitely is going to be counted on to fill in some gaps here, missed from like guys like Singleton and Vaughters and even Micah Johnson. And then the next guy, Nate Holley, number 40, linebacker. Let's see if he can step up after being one of the backups here. Well, check out this name. Here's one new receiver that we got out of camp here, number 83, Josh Huff. I wonder if there's some bias there. That's what we nickname our general manager there. So Josh Huff, number 83 wide receiver. And then coming back after a pretty good solid campaign in his rookie season, Don Jackson, number 25 running back here. But as we saw in camp here, we got lots of depth here at running back here. So I think we're going to definitely be a strong force on the ground here. So let's see how Don Jackson does in his sophomore season. And then we have Lorenzo Jerome, number 49, who's wearing Alex Singleton's old number. But he's a defensive back there, so he's not a linebacker here. But we'll have to get used to seeing Jerome 49. And it's spelled Jerome. So we'll see how that goes out. And then the next guy, well, I was sitting around his family at the 106 Grey Cup here, and I think he's ready to step in and take on special little linebacker. Is Rhonda Jones, number 52 there. Hopefully we'll see some more big plays out of him on linebacker. He definitely made one of the big plays for Calgary in the 106 Grey Cup here with my family around him, which made it even more special. So that's Rhonda Jones, 52. Next guy on the offensive line here who I think is definitely going to be counting a lot more is Alexis, number 62, the offensive line here. So it's just definitely trying to fill in some holes here. I say once I get to the injury part. Next receiver here, we'll see if he steps in. Number 81, Michael Kulkas, the wide receiver. So let's see if how he steps in with getting some more playing time here. And then another running back that has been one of the backups here, but maybe you'll see some more time besides special team is William Longley, number 23 running back here. And thankfully we got this guy still in the fold here on defensive line here. One of the free agent signings that we were able to keep is Cordero Law, number 41, defensive lineman. Let's see how he can do. Count on as one of the leaders here. Another guy that I think will be counted on a lot more on the defensive line is Justin Lawrence, number 68, defensive lineman. And then one guy who's definitely been steady on punting here and one of the best guys. He can punt in cough and corners, I say. Number 6, Rob Maver. He's, believe it or not, this is be his 10th season here since we drafted him from Guelph back in 2010 here. So I'm very, very intrigued on this next guy here. Is some people say a guy that might have gotten the steal in the draft here is Hergy Mayala, number 1, wide receiver here. That's who we drafted in the first round here. He's on the team here. Let's see how he does. He's also wearing the old number of Lamar Durant, the top Canadian last year's Grey Cup, who decided to go home to BC there. So next guy on the roster here is Yvonne Mcclendon, number 3 defensive lineman. See how he does. Another guy that nice to see back here on the linebacker is Linton McManus, number 48 linebacker. He was definitely huge on special teams here, but I think he's going to be counted on more during the season here. Another defensive back here that's coming back that probably we're going to see some more time is Royce Miette, number 16, defensive back. And then another linebacker here that has been good on special teams since we drafted him just a couple years ago. Eric Buzzerella, number 33 linebacker here. And then another depth running back that is still in the fold here. Number 34, Anta Malolish leader, number 34. And then very, very, very happy that this guy decided to re-signed and decided to stick around for another 4 years. Number 19, Levi Mitchell, the quarterback. Let's say he'll continue his dominant play and showing he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league there, or the best quarterback in the league. So make note of this next guy. As Marabe, defensive lineman, he is going to wear number 98 this year. So he's still on the team, but wearing a different number here. And he was definitely a nice find from the Saskatchewan Roughriders a couple years ago on free agency. So next guy, I still associate this good number with Doug Flutie's number. Dwayne Norman, number 20, he's a linebacker here. So we'll see how this number 20 does for Calgary. And then number 30, Rene Paredes, the kicker. He's been definitely one of the top, more accurate kickers of all time here, and can always count on him to kick that winning field goal when the game's on the line here. It's nice to have Rene back. Another guy that's back here is one name, Charlie Power, number 46, one of the running backs here. Said we were stacked on running back here, and definitely have some depth here, which is not a bad thing. And then Justin Renfro, number 64, on the offensive line here. I think he's going to be definitely pulled into action a lot more here. And then we'll see how this guy does in his sophomore season. Defensive back, number 31, Trey Robertson. And be interesting to see how healthy this guy is, but at least he signed for 2 more years and hopefully a couple more years of beautiful day in the neighborhood. Keep in mind he changed his number, is now number 4, Eric Rogers, wide receiver there. And he said one of his favorite quarterbacks that he's ever played with was Levi Mitchell. And actually, for the record there, Eric Rogers signed before Levi Mitchell did on free agency day. So I'm actually kind of pleasantly surprised that Eric Rogers came back, because there was some speculation that he was going to retire there. But, you know, I love beautiful days in the neighborhood, especially in the end zone there. So now, as we continue working down the roster here, Mike Rose, number 91, defensive lineman. And then now we get to the later part of the roster here. So I think this is one of the global players that we have, or at least the name has. Andreas Salgado, number 85, wide receiver there. So let's see, taking old Kenyon Rambo's number there. And then this guy we drafted locally last year in the first round, and he was looked at possibly maybe being tried at center here, but you're probably going to see more of him on the offensive line here as Ryan Skeever, number 58, offensive line. He went to school with the University of Calgary here. And then I'm very excited about this receiver here, because he definitely showed some poise, especially late in the season here, is Richie Sindati. He actually also played with the Colts here, number 87, wide receiver here, so I'm very anxious to see how he'll step up this year. And then the long-time veteran here, he's still here, Brandon Smith, number 28, defensive back here. He's been on 3 Grey Cup teams. Hopefully he'll be here for a 4th this year. At least still it's a dream right now. And then Fraser Sopik, he actually looked pretty good there in preseason here. He'll be wearing number 47, linebacker here. And there was a lot of talk about all the free agents that we lost here. Well, the only guy that we picked up in free agency was Courtney Stephen from the Hamilton Tiger Cats. He's a defensive back, and he'll be wearing number 11 here. Another guy you can say is another veteran, so grizzled vet for the Calgary Stampeders, who still shows no signs of slowing down, is Junior Turner, number 7, offensive lineman there. And he's always a threat there, and he made the last play in the 106 Grey Cup there by sacking Trevor Harris, and it was from out there, but he'll be forever known as being part of the last play of the 106 Grey Cup here. Another grizzled vet on the defensive back, Jamar Wall, number 29, defensive back there. He's always a wall, and sometimes that wall has hands and picks up intersections here. So now we're getting down to the last few players here before we look at the other rosters here. Another guy, an offensive lineman, who's nice to be back, is Derek Wiggin, number 97, defensive lineman. So we still got some strong pieces on the defensive line here, and I still think we can do some damage with a committee instead of a couple players here. And then, very, very happy this guy's back and provides some depth in running back and returns. Scary Terry Williams, number 38 there, running back. And, he made that big play up at Edmonton there just before halftime there with the punt return for a touchdown and the longest in Grey Cup history here. This guy will likely still be our centerman. Montgomery Williams, number 61, defensive lineman here. And the last player on the active roster here is Raheem Wilson, another rookie that we looked good during preseason. Number 21, defensive back there. So I want to keep mentioning on the offensive lineman that we're going to have to look at a couple guys that are going to have to step up here maybe a little sooner than ideally, is because we have a few guys on the 6-game injured list that is going to hurt a little early here. Highlighted with Brad Erdos, number 53, the offensive lineman. He's on the 6-game injured list, but he got hurt during training camp before preseason, and pretty much his 2019 is done for the football season. So his season ended before it started, and they say he'll be good to go in 2020, but too bad for Brad Erdos that he won't get to play this year, but he's on the 6-game injured list. Next guy that's already on the 6-game injured list, one of the guys that we signed to hopefully provide some competition stability on the offensive line, is Leon Johnson, number 50, taking Spencer Wilson's old number there. He's on the 6-game injured list, but no word on if he'll play this season. And then the next guy who's still injured from the Labor Day Classic here, but when he did play, he was one of the top receivers in the league here, and hopefully he still has some play left in him when he gets healthy, is Kamara Jordan, number 88, the slot back. Let's hope, it looked like there was some talk there after Labor Day that, if he's going to play again here, but at least he's on the roster. And then the next guy that some are speculating that his 2019 is over before it began, and he got hurt in the Western Final here, but he's still on the roster, is another running back with some depth, is Omar Morris, number 32. And then this guy got hurt in the preseason game back in the game against Saskatchewan here, who actually played in the Grey Cup and looked like he was rising through the ranks in the defensive lineman, if I could say his name, is Florin Olamonde, number 90. So he's on the 6-game injured list. So we already got 5 players on the 6-game injured list here. So now on the practice squad here, there's definitely some guys that deserve to still be around, and hopefully they can make an impact for Calgary during the season here. Starting with Daniel Beavervin, number 86, wide receiver. He's on the practice roster. And then the next guy on the practice roster is David Brown, number 66. And then here's another global player, Guillermo Calderon, number 59, defensive lineman. He's on the practice roster. And then next guy, Karim Kari, number 35. Didn't mean to try to sound French there, but just that's how it flowed. He's actually a running back here, so we definitely had a lot of competition there. Next guy, Chris Casher, number 96, defensive end. And then Jamari Gilberts, defensive back, number 24. And then Julian Guthrie, another offensive line, number 65 on the practice roster here. Calgary's had bad luck with offensive linemen here the last couple of years, so we definitely can use a few reinforcements here if need be. And then the last 3 players on the practice roster here, we got Aaron Peck, number 80, wide receiver here. And then our second global player is Oscar Hugo Silva, kicker, number 71. And then Zach Williams, number 67, offensive lineman there. So I'm going to put the whole roster in the description there. But I'm going to still say there's obviously going to be some new faces on the team, new names every year. I mean, ideally you can't keep the same team that we won the championship with last year, but That's the harsh reality when players get older or injured or got to manage the salary cap here. But, one of the reasons why Calgary's been so successful, especially this past decade here, has been able to reload and have players rise to the ranks and still be able to stay competitive there. And we still got some big names on the team that were key players for us last year. And even coming into last year, I felt that we still had a good team, but I felt at that time Calgary made some moves in the offseason, did a little bit of a youth movement there, but we definitely made even more of a youth movement here. And, obviously it's what's fun about speculation and making predictions. And, hopefully there were some players that stood out here. And actually, I forgot to mention here, that's who's on the active roster here. I was going to also cover who got cut by the Calgary Stampeders here. So let's bring up the roster thing again, and let's highlight who got cut by the Calgary Stampeders here. As I actually meant to do that first, but I wanted to get to the roster here. But here's who got cut by the Calgary Stampeders here, and there was a couple of names that might have been a little bit surprised, both on experience and also how they looked during training camp and preseason here. But in the same order by actually here, just by last name here. But Calgary released defensive back Zacary, Alexis, linebacker Jerod, Fernandez, kicker Gabe, Ferraro, wide receiver Shay, defensive back Reese, Fleming, running back LaDarius, Galloway, wide receiver Gibbs, linebacker Gore. He made a play in the Saskatchewan game. Defensive back Gum Hayes is left. And then the next two names were kind of a middle. Not surprised, just some experience I have. Defensive lineman Michael Kushak and wide receiver Jillian Lynch. Those are the biggest names that the Calgary Stampeders let go, released, that has some experience here. And then Jonathan Massaquoi, then defensive back, that was defensive lineman. Defensive back Dagogo Maxwell, and then defensive back Marco Myers, and then defensive lineman Ricky Neal, and then defensive lineman Kevin Porusser, and then defensive back Mike Stevens, and then defensive lineman Darnell Thompson, defensive lineman Charles Walker. And then this player might have been a little bit surprised, given he made some plays and heard he looked good during camp and that, but I gotta look beyond that. But wide receiver Griff Whalen, and then the last guy that we released was linebacker Travis Wilson here. So those are all the guys that were in camp that we released ahead of the roster deadline there. But you never know, sometimes opportunities present themselves again, and as I go through the season with my Calgary Stampeders this month, maybe I'll mention those players' names again, and they'll make an impact here later in the season. But it's always the fun of watching the Love Day roster, no matter if I'm following hockey, or football, is who was on the team and who you thought should have been on the team and wasn't on the opening day roster, but then eventually had the opportunity and made the most of it. One guy I thought of that, if you go back to the Flames video, that Rasmus Anderson was not on the opening day roster here, but eventually had his opportunity and he took with it, and now he's looking like to be potentially a top pair defenseman there. So that's one example to look at there locally there. So like I said, this will be my last video here for the weekend of full weekend of June here, as football season is right around the corner here, and there's going to be a lot more football content here, as hockey's winding down and lacrosse is winding down, and the only videos that I'm going to be making for hockey and lacrosse here for the next couple months will be any off-season news. I mean, in a couple weeks, the Calgary Flames will have their NHL entry draft there, so I'll make a video on recapping the Calgary Flames draft, and I'll highlight this year if any Calgary Hitmen get drafted and where they go. And you know, there's always speculation and silly season right now, but maybe if there's any big trades, I'll make a separate video about that. And then there's the expansion draft in the NLL there, so I'll definitely make videos on that next month when the expansion draft is on the Calgary Roughnecks, and looking at how the expansion draft is shaping up from the Calgary Roughnecks point of view here. So, but basically the next couple of months for my Calgary sports content is going to be a lot more football here, as I did start season 2 of my Calgary Stampeders this month. And as if you're new or returning, I recap how the Calgary Stampeders did at the end of the month, and that's a monthly segment till the Grey Cup here. So anyway, if you enjoy everything I do on my YouTube channel, just make sure you like, subscribe. I also throw in personal vlogs and tend to comedy and any other scenery videos I post on the go here. I mean, there was definitely a lot more videos here. Actually, it's not the first full weekend. This is the second weekend of June 8th and 9th. There was a lot more Calgary Stampeders content here with you know, obviously with the schedule and the predictions there. But you know, next week is the home opener against the Ottawa Red Blacks there, and I'm definitely very anxious, and I'll capture the opening video that they're going to use this year. Wonder what song they're going to use, and I'm sure they'll make a few references on being defending champions here. So anyway, watch for that, and I'll see you in the next video. Go Stamps Go, and let's defend this Grey Cup here. And we've assembled a group of men who we count on to make that happen here. So thank you.